Hello, hello, check, check, check.
Mic
What's
check, mic check.
going on, my people, my people? What's up? Welcome to another episode of Through a Culture Lens, dry run number 4. I am your
That's
host,
right.
Michael Anthony, and of course, I'm here with the illustrious and talented Amber Gray. What's going on, Amber?
Yo, just a day. It's been a day, but I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. I can't complain. It's
Good.
not as cold outside.
It is nice out.
And this week is a little bit better than last week.
Agreed.
Especially since we're in the center of the universe here in Washington D.C.
That's right.
The lot was going on last week, so this week, it's been a lot more calmer.
That's true.
So things have been pretty good. So, watching anything recently? You know,
What have I watched recently? Gosh, I can't even remember. I feel like I've watched so many things. I watched Sylvie's Love.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
That was really good.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of it. I'm trying, a lot of stuff that I've been watching hasn't necessarily been like black cinema
Right,
stuff.
right,
It's just been
right,
some just kind of random things that kind of grab my attention,
right,
you
right,
know.
right,
What
right.
about you?
Well, Actually, I've been catching up on some stuff. I've listened to an interview with Oliver Stone, so went back and started, watching some of his filmography, and then caught up on Blackish. I haven't seen Blackish in quite a while, so
Neither have
wanted
I.
to, yeah, yeah, yeah. I watched, kind of when they first started, but now starting to catch back up with it. But
Okay.
once again, people, thank you for joining us. Of course, the chat room is there, as you can see. The chat is in the show, so you are also part of the show.
That's
So we're gonna go
right.
ahead and move on because we want to go ahead and get straight to the topic. Like the last time, we've done these shows, the shows kind of went a little bit longer, so we want to just go ahead and jump right into it. So,
That's right.
if you saw our last episode, when we were talking about 2020 in review, what was what we told you guys is that we're going to be talking about a cultural, examination of
Hmm.
black representation. Girl, I can't talk
That's
right
right.
now.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's one of them days. It's one of them days. But yeah,
It's one of them
today
days.
we're going to be talking about black representation on film. But we're of course that's a very broad and wide topic. So we're
That's
not going to
right.
get too much into the weeds. We're just going to kind of go over some of the things. So Amber, what would you like to tell the people, kind of get them prepared for on the show?
Yeah, so we've been kind of looking throughout history, kind of the tropes that Black people have been plagued with when it comes to cinema, television. Some of these kind of stereotypical characters that started off as blackface characters in the turn of the century, in the turn of 20th century, and kind of like morphed into other I don't want to say less harmful. I say equally harmful in a lot of ways, but kind of morphed into some of the stereotypical characters that we see even today that we might not even think are stereotypes, because it's like a lot of times you watch some of these like Oscar nominated films like Green Book and some of these other films
Mm-hmm.
and don't realize that that's just a long line of the tropes that Hollywood's been kind of pushing out there since like 1904, 1905, when, there were some of the first silent films. Those same tropes that were harmful then are kind of more insidious now. They're a little bit kind of, covert.
Mm-hmm.
They were overt then, now they're kind of covert. But we wanted to kind of give the audience an idea of like what, as film scholars, is what how it started and where we are now. And like we said, this is going to be a deeper dive that we're going to be doing probably many episodes, kind of an overview type of show of some of the tropes that we found or that we've studied, I should say. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and move right into it now. There was a couple pieces of work that we definitely wanted to bring some reference to. One of
Right.
them is the film Bamboozled by Spike Lee. I know it didn't get like a lot of traction, when it first came out. So
Right.
of course, anybody in the chat, if you've seen it, please, oh, matter of fact, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe
That's
and all that
right.
other
That's
stuff.
right.
But with Bamboozled, he kind of it's a story about a producer who sort of wants to turn the industry on its head by doing this, as Amber had just eloquently said, this very overt, show about black minstrel, shows. And
That's
to
right.
me, Spike Lee, his best work, cinematic work, is Malcolm X. But to me, his best original work is this one. I love Bamboozled.
Absolutely.
I
Me
love
too.
Bamboozle. And then the second one is a book, actually. Now, of course, we are filmmakers, but we read a lot, and we do read a lot. So one of the books that we would definitely suggest is Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks by
That's right.
Donald Bogle. He's been writing on this
Yes.
subject since the 70s. Yep, there it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I read his book, a little bit later in life. I know you read one of his pieces when you were in school.
Right.
So give us a little brief over what you remember. I know you've been thumbing through it, a little bit.
Yeah. So he kind of gave a history of when Black characters, we can't even say Black people because they weren't Black people, when Black characters showed up into film. So he references like around I think it was 1903, Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom's Cabin was like a 20-minute film that showed a mechanic, kind of like just one single shot, and it was a silent film, showed a Black mechanic literally working in a garage, and it didn't have a whole lot of story to it back then, but that was a white character in blackface. But that was one of the first times an actual Black character was on screen, was in a movie. So he kind of goes, he deep dives into when we first appeared in films as Black characters. Of course, majority of those films in the early 1900s were played by white characters, and they were made to essentially make white people feel superior. I mean, he says it was harmful enough, some of these characters, which I don't think it was harmful. I think they were pretty strategically making sure that those characters were over the top on any spectrum, which we'll get into, be it the Tom character, who's just like, whatever you say, massa, that kind of like, agreeable character, non-threatening, to the Black buck, which was completely opposite of that character, was completely threatening, and usually only after, disparaging white womanhood, trying to like get into the pants of white women, which that also, of course, again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, how some of these tropes in these films translated into real world, issues and problems. That whole idea that Black men are only after white women to rape them. Of course, that translated into a lot of lynchings, especially happening. I mean, obviously lynchings happen for 400 years, but a lot of them happen around this time when cinema, came about, because of just the propaganda of what Black men were, or who white Black women were, as portrayed in these films. People kind of took it, and it was gospel at that point, ran with it.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the other one would be Hollywood Shuffle, one of Robert Townsend's classics. Actually, it was like his first movie, and it's actually about him wanting to be, make his first movie and make his big break as an actor. And he really goes through these old tropes of like what a Black actor has to do, what they have to shuffle through in order to even get in front of the executives to even make a movie. So definitely, three pieces. We're not going to go too much into it as far as too much of a review, but just definitely some things that you guys should watch out for. If you're trying to better understand, this conversation that we're having.
That's right.
Yeah. So then segueing into, the first Black image that we saw in motion picture.
That's right.
The research that I did on this is that they just found it, like somebody donated some old film from the 19th century, like in 1898. But like, I think within the past 15 years, somebody just dropped off some film at USC and said, here, if you can preserve it, you can preserve it. And then this is what they were able to preserve was the very first moving picture of African Americans on screen. It got really popular on Twitter, I think it was hashtag, and just to think like the first image of African Americans was love. It was straight up Black love, What's your thoughts?
I mean, it gives me chills. Every time I see this, it gives me chills. Because what is it? A total of 15 seconds? Yep. 20 seconds?
Like maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. I mean, I think it's such a cool, and it actually is really smooth. It's so funny because that's 1898.
Right.
And some of these like 1908, 1910, and we'll get into Birth of a Nation, obviously, which was like 1913, Birth of a Nation?
Birth of a Nation was 1915.
1915, close. Which, once, because you and I have both seen that, obviously it's been years since I've seen the original, which is 3-hour, as they call it, masterpiece. Right. That actually looks really smooth. I know it's probably remastered, so let me step back, but it looked really smooth for 1898. It was beautiful. I love that.
It was, and just, you can tell that, the young man and the woman knew each other. That, especially in 1898, they had to be that man's wife. It wasn't just, just his girlfriend. I'm pretty sure during those times, right after Reconstruction, and they were dressed nice, and so it just gave like this beautiful image. And I'm pretty sure it was probably a white filmmaker at that time who was just testing out some film, and just kind of grabbed these people. We don't know what their background is, but just the fact of that, one of the oldest living pieces of footage, which is our archive, our Black archive, dates back to 1898, but we always think about our past as these tropes that we're about to talk about, these Coons and these
That's
Uncle
right.
Toms and different things like that.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And then of course, with that beautiful black image, we have to talk about the demonization of the black image, and
Right.
that would have to be Birth of a Nation, 1915. So, thoughts? Have you seen you've seen this, right?
I've seen this, but again, it's been, I don't even want to say it's going to tell my age. It's been years. I mean, when
Right.
when I was in school.
Right. You want to tell them? You want to tell them a little bit about what the Birth of a Nation is?
Essentially, Birth of a Nation is, I think it takes place in South Carolina, and it's supposed to be this good Southern family that has slaves at the time, and there was some sort of revolt of the slaves, and of course, anytime the masses don't have the slaves in line, that literally means destruction of America. That means destruction of society, because Black people are best when they're kept in control by white forces. So this was kind of this D.W. Griffith reimagining of, I want to say this was Civil War, supposed to be Civil War time. So this was essentially them showing what happens when Black people are free and can do what they want. And because Black people don't have no moral compass, as told by this story, it's all mayhem. It's literally hell breaking loose for 3 hours of Black people just raping and pillaging and doing what we do best in their eyes, which is having no decorum or having no ability to emotionally control ourselves.
Absolutely. No, and that's 100%. And I'm not showing the more brutal parts because I don't want to give that any sort of presence on this show, but essentially one of the things that they did in this is that it started the Ku Klux Klan, like the membership, because
a resurgence. It was a resurgence.
I'm sorry. Yes. A resurgence. Great. Yeah. Great word. Resurgence of the KKK, because because in the movie, it's two Black men, of course, played by white men in blackface, kidnap a white woman, and the white woman, so then she would not be raped by these two Black men, throws herself off of a mountain to kill herself. And just the pain and the grief that the white audience had during that time, that this white woman would rather kill herself than to be taken by two Black men, and the Ku Klux Klan came through with their hoods on and massacred, all the Black people. And it was like basically the Avengers of 1915, to put it
That's
plainly.
actually, that is absolutely correct.
And this right here started the demonization of Black people, as far as, especially Black men, as far as being brutes, and us being criminals and womanizers and all this other stuff. And once again, we'll get into this, but we definitely want to give some context, at least with these two films, one that highlights Black love, and then another one that talks about Black brutality.
That's right, because at the end of the day, obviously, these tropes were before cinema. I mean, a lot of these things were kind of word of mouth things, print press. I'm sure they had plenty of, racist things being thrown around in the newspapers and magazines prior to the film industry blossoming. But this was such a grand scale. This cost $100,000, excuse me. It's cost $100,000 in 1915. That's like a couple $1 million probably now, maybe even more than that. I mean, $100,000 in 1915 was a whole lot of money. Just the sheer amount of resources. Extras. Yeah, resources. I mean, they use so many groundbreaking. I mean, it's like, I have to give it to him. D.W. Griffith used so many groundbreaking editing skills in 1915 for this movie. It really set the tone of like how a film should flow in a lot of ways. Like, he kind of set the standard in a way for modern cinema. And unfortunately, that backlash, as usual, was on us, because not only do you have that brutality, which is the most damning, I think, stereotype out of probably all. I think all of the tropes that we're going to talk about are really horrible, but the brutal Black buck is probably the worst, because that's like literally today you turn on the news, and just last year, I mean, every killing that happened was because of a stereotype of brutality, implicit bias, thinking that the Black man that they're stopping was somehow brutal and was going to kill them, was going to kill the cops. So that kind of carries on in today's, not just cinema, but just life.
Yeah, and
so that was really really damning.
And just like Omar just put in there, right now they're still using these tactics in music today.
That's right.
In music video,
exactly.
in music, and that's one of the things too
That's
that
right.
we want to preface in this conversation. Like, yeah, we're talking about films,
Right.
generally, but really these things really transfer over into music, into books, magazines, right. Just in all types of representation, that we have out there. And, even like some of those, the gentleman who just passed away, not Eric Jerome, is it Eric Jerome Dickey, I believe?
I can't remember which author that was.
Right, but
I don't remember.
But I heard, like, and I've never read none of his books, but I know like some of these thug black narrative books are definitely based and seeped in these tropes. So if we're going to, let's move on to our very first one that we're going to talk about. Oh, right. Uncle Tom. Yes, Uncle Tom. Yes. Well, Uncle Tom, of course, for people who don't know, like, this is from the Harriet Beecher Stowe book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, where Uncle Tom, is a black slave who has dealt with the worst and worst of brutality. And of course, what we're showing right now is some images of the I guess reenactments of the book.
Right.
And,
right.
But he's just this God-fearing man. He doesn't cause any problems. He doesn't cause any trouble. And he eventually dies, but of course, one of his last words is that, I don't belong to you, my soul belongs to God, and that's one of the things that he lasts on. But this has definitely been a trope that has been going on, and even now is even a derogatory term towards black people.
Right. That we use towards each other, right?
Yo, Uncle Tom,
Right. So this trope, as you can see, like, there's Shirley Temple. This was usually it didn't have to be an older black man, but it usually was like a grandfather. It was usually an older man who, like you said, deeply religious, docile, non-threatening. And a lot of it got turned into kind of like the lapdog of the massa. He got turned into kind of like, his right-hand man kind of thing. He could count on Uncle Tom to be there at his beck and call, essentially. And he and I had talked about the Harriet Beecher Stowe book. We have to actually go back and read that. But the way that Uncle Tom is portrayed in that book is not really how it's portrayed in films. They kind of morph that a little bit. And they really use that to control a lot of black men into being, in my opinion, and I've read this before, they control a lot of black men to kind of being, non-threatening, to kind of go with the flow. That's what Uncle Tom does, go with the flow. Everything will work all right for you if you go with the flow. So this was probably one of the first major tropes that you see in films would be the Uncle Tom character.
Absolutely. And, and we've seen how that role has definitely permeated into today. And one of the things, which I'm going to show this skit, and this is a skit from Key and Peele, and it's the magical
positive portrayal of black people.
Right.
On top of the fact that we were talking about how, like, a lot of magical Negro stories are Oscar nominated.
Yes, very much.
They love that. They love that. So yeah, I think it's not much different than the Uncle Tom character.
It's not, because really the magical Negro, what he does in the Uncle Tom character, as far as these tropes, is that he goes into the innermost empathy of white people,
That's
from
right.
this sage old person, and actual Uncle Tom in the book is actually portrayed by Harriet Beecher Stowe's slave, uncle, that she called uncle, which we'll go into his whole backstory, because his backstory is definitely, or his story is definitely nothing like how it's portrayed on film. So that's why, once again, we need to keep our stories going. Okay. So then the next one would be, hold on, the
The story of OJ.
Yeah. Well, because you know what? Because what this was Jay-Z's music video.
I know.
And like this definitely did not get like a lot of play. But what he was trying to depict in this video was just like this coon mentality, and especially like the old caricatures of black people, working the fields and eating watermelon and all this other stuff, and that's just how black people just look at us. And like OJ, him being so anti-black, you know what I'm saying? Like he wanted to be, white. Like he said, I'm not black. I'm
not
OJ.
Black. I'm OJ.
So of course the Coon character, that was different than the Uncle Tom character. The Coon character was the comic relief, the dim-witted person, the one who always had the quick jabs and the trickster and things like that. This this coon conversation is still going on today.
Mm-hmm. It's still going on today, and this is one of the characters that we probably see the most in, for to me at least, in music videos. The most in, well, there's going to be a subset too. The most in reality TV. So to me, the Coons is probably like the it trope to me currently, because you can't turn on Love and Hip Hop, you can't turn on a Real Housewives, you can't turn on not even just those reality shows, you can't turn on a Power, you can't turn on any Black current show movie that does not have a subset of Coons in it.
And talking about Coons, and you're right. And I wanted to step on this frame right here because if people didn't know, Judy Garland also did blackface as a pickaninny, which is part of that coon role, which we just recently saw in your favorite show.
Lovecraft Country had the Jigaboo-Boos, which there is a whole kind of divided discussion in this Lovecraft. I love Lovecraft, y'all know. So in the Lovecraft group, people were dressing up as the Jigaboo-Boos. And that's also from Uncle Tom's Cabin, the Jigaboo. So the Jigaboo is a pickaninny, that's a coon. The pickaninny character is essentially a child. And a lot of times, like Shirley Temple was a pickaninny in a couple of her films in blackface at like, what, 7, 8 years old?
Yes. Way before she went to Oz. Way before she was doing blackface.
Well, no, Shirley Temple, not Judy Garland. Shirley Temple.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Shirley Temple.
Okay. Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. So Shirley Temple dressed up in blackface as a little girl, and this character, the pickaninny character, was usually a child with hair sticking up, wild, feral, was not being raised properly, precocious. Kind of into everything, and a comic relief. It was a comic relief character for most of these films. And, so like go back to the Lovecraft, if y'all have seen Lovecraft yet. So Lovecraft, essentially they kind of turned that trope into a nightmare. So the two Jigaboo characters jumped out of Uncle Tom's Cabin book and chased one of the characters and was chasing her. It was a spell that was put on her. So they kind of turned that into, on its head and made it a nightmare, because it is a nightmare to see little kids, little Black children, being kind of like essentially uneducated, buckwheat. Just think buckwheat. Right, he was literally the prototype character for this particular trope.
It was, and that was, of course, Little Rascals, back during that time. And of course, famously played by Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live. But
one of my favorite skits.
I didn't like that. I didn't like this past one when he did it on Christmas. I ain't gonna lie. When he did it on that Christmas episode, I was just like, brother, you too old. Okay, not
way too old.
And Read the Room. We don't need buckwheat right now.
We do not need buckwheat right now.
We do not need buckwheat right now. Okay, but definitely the coon is somebody we know. But then, of course, the one character that really doesn't get much play as of this time is the tragic mulatto character. The character who is half Black, half white. And, sort of they're dealing with their racial identity. Right.
And this character was created to play to the heartstrings and sensibilities of white people. So you've got your Imitation of Life, you've got your, trying to think of all the movies. Carmen. Right.
Carmen for sure. With
Carmen.
With Dorothy Dandridge.
With Dorothy Dandridge, yeah. So you've got those movies where this poor quadroon, they call them these different names of like how much Blackness you have, how much Indian, they have these kind of derogatory names for these characters. If only, they're usually passing for white. And then unfortunately the veil was lifted and somebody found out that this person had a drop of Black blood on them. And it was like faint. It was like, if only you had the fortunate, life circumstance to get away with the fact that you've got that unpure blood. It was supposed to, and Imitation of Life, even the two versions that they did really well box office wise, because white people really, really like to see, I don't even know how to describe it. They really like to see a character struggling and wanting so badly to be white, but knowing that they can't be white, and just that kind of dichotomy. And oh God, I feel so bad for that girl. If only, if only she could just get away with it a little bit longer. It's just a strange kind of storyline to me, how they use that as like this emotional,
Yeah,
pull for them for some reason.
well, yeah, and I think it's like the whole they kind of saw themselves in the character for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Now of course
Yeah.
because it is a white person. In Imitation of Life, it's an old movie. Now some of my OGs in the chat, may remember
Right.
Imitation of Life. But that's a story about a black woman who made pancakes. The white lady came in, they got into business together. And she had this great recipe, and then her daughter, who is half white, tries to pass as white. This is the black cook. And so she goes off and tries to get her own life as a white woman. Of course, I'm not going to, give too much at the end, but basically it's a drama. So at the end,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily go as people would hope for it to do. But then what it does is then it just kind of reaches into the sensibility of white people to be like, oh my goodness, this woman really wanted to be white so bad, but then, the ending was so tragic.
That's right.
And and that's definitely, I think, a movie that we should definitely dissect at some point in time.
And both of them, even really, and just see if there's any difference. Honestly,
for sure,
I've seen them both, but it's been years for both.
It's been years, and of course, talking about the mother in there. Then we have the Mammy role. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about the Mammy role there, Amber.
So the Mammy role is kind of the wife to the Tom in a way. The Mammy role is essentially always completely either asexual, unattractive, and then that's kind of how they write them, to be overweight, sassy, little sassy, but extremely loyal to their white family that they're working for, and they're usually a maid, cook, combination, and essentially just like Gone with the Wind. Even when her master is essentially is poor and destitute, she's right there with her, helping her get them curtains together for a dress. Just literally loyal to the end, to her own detriment, to her family's own detriment. Okay, so that's usually the character, and of course, like you mentioned before, it's the Aunt Jemima, essentially.
Yeah, the Aunt Jemima, and then even with Imitation of Life, and then with Imitation of Life and all these Mammy characters, they're always willing to put themselves out there for the betterment of the people who have, I guess, been around them their whole life. They never really wanted more other than just respect.
That's it.
But as far as when it comes to like a pay raise or anything like that, they really didn't ask for for too much of that. And so this is definitely a role that we've seen definitely transition from back in the early golden age of cinema to now. And don't forget, this role too was the first time that African Americans got a Oscar.
That's right. That's right. Hattie McDaniel.
For Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind.
And this has just always been like sort of that big, that big mama trope. But the thing, but for white people though. But then the thing is though, like, do black women and black mothers, I can kind of relate to it a little bit, as far as
right. Well, that's why modern day you've got Tyler Perry, because that, like, a lot of us have, like that nickname. I mean, a lot of us have that big mama. Everyone's got a big mama or a big mama story or big mama in their lineage. So that is something that is like relatable to everybody. And I think a lot of white families, because of like what you just said and what we're talking about, that character, that particular role in their lives, put themselves first. So they absolutely literally loved their mammies. I mean, it's a lot of those people that were raised by them, that's their mama. Not necessarily their actual white mama, the mammy's their mama. And so, yeah, so that character was really just kind of like endearing to black and white audiences, because we all have a special place in our hearts now for different reasons, right? Like we have that special place in our hearts because that's our family. That's our grandmother, our great grandmother. For them, it's, you took such a good care of me. It's all the centering. It's centering them. That's why I love you. I'm centering myself. So I love you because of what you've done for me. And even just thinking about that Imitation of Life scene you brought up with the pancake mix, it's like literally us giving our genius away for a white family's sake. She gave her invention, her invention to her white, and said, oh, no, I don't need this. This is, I just, whatever you want. This is all for you. Like, just literally giving up the goose, giving up everything, literally for your white family. And that's that character.
Absolutely. And of course, our more modern day one would be the person who I dislike probably the most, and that would be the Popeye's chicken lady. She come and get some of this chicken. Come and get some of this ghost chicken. Come on now.
I know.
And of course, I had to pick this commercial because, of course, this is the chicken sandwich that had black people literally killing themselves to get to Mama's chicken sandwich.
Literally.
And, so don't think that these roles aren't still permeating even in our advertisements. Even
Right.
in our advertisements. So they are still definitely playing these tropes so much more.
There they
Um,
are.
okay. So and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating.
Tristan's right. I mean, definitely Tristan's right.
Oh, but
Medea,
mm-hmm,
I think that's why a
mm-hmm.
lot of black people are always split on Tyler Perry, right?
Right.
Because it's like when he came out with Medea as the stage play, it was,
Mm-hmm.
certain groups of people flocked to that, thought it was hilarious because again, it reminds us of our grandmothers, our great grandmothers. But once you start seeing it over and over again and transition from, the Chitlin circuit,
Mm-hmm.
the theater to films,
Mm-hmm.
and we're seeing this man, this big 6'3", however tall he is, black man playing this boisterous, loud Mammy figure.
Mm-hmm.
We started to kind of go, hold up, like this doesn't, something about this character just doesn't sit well with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you go down the list and you see all of how every time that character pops up in a film, it's again loud, stereotypical. And with her character, she kind of turned that into like a gangster Mammy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
A little bit of a gangster Mammy, but
Right.
it's still you get a little twinge, like I really don't want to see this character continue throughout for 100 more years. I don't need to see this. Let's evolve past
Right.
this.
right. No,
Like, it's just a bit much.
It's but the thing is though, like I mean, we've talked about this before, and of course we'll bring it into the chat as well. But like Martin Lawrence has played in a woman dress. Big Mama House. He had a franchise. That's 3 movies. He had a franchise called Big Mama's House. Eddie Murphy has donned a dress.
Yep.
Matter of fact, him donning a dress in Norbit is the reason why he didn't win an Academy Award for Dreamgirls. I will put that on everything. When he dropped Norbit, he was nominated for Academy Award for Dreamgirls. He would have got that thing. And he dropped Norbit like 2 months before then, and that just knocked him out, and people just couldn't take him serious no more. But then,
I don't disagree with that because Norbit was no, okay. I'm just give that sound effect.
Yeah, yes. So we've definitely had this the males kind of transition as you were talking about, and it's starting to get old. But then we don't give the same critique to the white actors who do that. Like your Robin Williams for Mrs. Doubtfire and Richard Dreyfuss for was it Tootsie?
That's right.
So and why do you think that is?
Well, we were talking about this. So, and even before that, like I was watching some of these clips for this show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the blackface segment, like we're talking about the 1920s, 1930s, a lot of the blackface female and male characters were played by white men.
Mm-hmm.
So white men have been I don't that's not the word cross-dressing. I can't say that.
Right.
They've been dressing like women for, longer than we have.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is the reason why there's such an outcry now and just kind of a bad taste in our mouth, we don't have enough cinema.
Right.
We don't have enough movies.
Yeah.
We don't have enough movies. So if 10 movies come out in 1 year that are majority black cast and 5 of those have black men dressed up as women, we're all kind of like, okay, guys, especially a Mammy. If you're doing a stereotypical Mammy character specifically, it's like, okay, like, we don't have enough variety to keep seeing these same tropes over and over again.
Yeah, but then we got the Octavia Spencers and the Loretta Devines, which I love them. I love the once again, in this show, it's not about critiquing like individual people, but it's just sort of just highlighting some of the things that we've noticed and that are true, and that I'm pretty sure that some of these performers and actors and filmmakers are in there probably even aware of this because they've been in the industry for so long. So that's something I don't think that's going to go away.
And why Tyler stopped doing Medea, right? I mean, I'm sure he probably felt like it reached its shelf life, the story. Yeah. But I'm sure a lot of like just the continuous hate of like, why are you still dressing up as Medea, made him say, okay, let me go in and just retire this character.
There's more Medea movies than there are Star Wars movies.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
My man can come up with a box set. Straight up boxing. When he comes out with it, I know some of y'all gonna buy it, but it's all good though. Black Hollywood.
I ain't judging.
I ain't judging. All right, so then let's go ahead and move on to the Buck and the Brute. And you had, you were talking about this, so go ahead and give us a little bit more about the Brute, the Buck.
So we can go back to D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. So that was the main damning character, as I mentioned earlier, from that particular film. It was, of course, the Coons, but that particular character was like you brought up, was the one that was after the white woman, and she'd rather jump off a mountaintop than to be raped by a black man. And look, all the advertisements, it's a black man literally staring dead in a white woman's eyes, trying to somehow, you know, somehow, you know, sexually advance her in some sort of way.
Yeah, this is the
So
scene right here, and yeah, that was the scene right there.
that's right.
Go ahead.
That's right. So yeah, so that character is supposed to be virile, tough, strong, a threat to white womanhood, a threat to humanity. Essentially, it's an animal. It's not a human. It's somebody that has, again, no moral compass, who has a no count Negro. That's basically what they're saying. The Coons and Bucks are kind of in a similar vein. One is a little bit less threatening, and one obviously is the brutal, a brutal character. But yeah, so that's like your Wesley Snipes. That's your
Rock.
Who else? Do we have anything? The Rock. But the thing about The Rock is he does so many family friendly movies. It's kind of hard to.
He's crossed over. Okay, I give you that. He's crossed over.
Yeah.
And also because he's sort of in that tragic mulatto sort of state too, you know, you know, so where he can kind of cross over, but you know, we you know, I like The Rock, so I'm not going to, I don't want to hate on The Rock, but definitely like the Mike Tysons, definitely rappers, you know, and
I was going to say, this is a rapper thing
this
for
is
sure.
This is definitely well, and also the shows like Power, you know what I'm saying, and 100%. Empire, you know what I'm saying, because Ghost was straight, even though he was smart, but he was the brute though, you know what I'm saying, like in the very first episode, in the very first scene, my man beats down a dude in his garage. You know what I'm saying? He takes his shirt off, you know what I'm saying, has his tank top on, and beats a dude up. And that's one of our first introductions to Ghost, is him beating somebody down. That's right. You know, Snowfall and just different, you know, shows like that that really sort of perpetuate this black thugness, this black demonization or aggressiveness, rather.
That's right. And you're going to, like we said, you're going to see this character mainly in music videos, and it's just literally listening to modern rap music. Just any sort of talk of aggression, you know, brutality, that's literally the trope of a black brute. I mean, they're literally perpetuating that trope by that kind of material. I
know. And see, and like I was watching the video and somebody was comparing Wu-Tang Clan to the brute, and I was like, no, you know, that's my group, but it's like, you know, I'm all about the 36 chambers, but you know, it's like they get pushed up there for this persona that they have, you know,
right?
And you know, I'm still gonna listen to it. I'm still gonna be all about hip hop and things like that. But once again, this is to sort of give you guys another lens to look through this stuff, you know, because as we'll talk about later on, you know, is art imitating life, or is life imitating art?
That's right.
You know, and that's something we'll definitely get back, you know, get into a little bit more. Anything else you want to say about the brute? Because especially with you know, especially as a black mother to a black son, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm a black man, you know what I'm saying? I know what it deals with, and I have a teenage, you know, 13-year-old black man that, you know, I have to kind of teach. But then from a black mother's perspective, you know, because that's the most dangerous trope that I think we have here. Literally
the most dangerous trope, because this is what got George Floyd killed, right? This is what gets people who are complying, black men in, you know, particular, this is what gets you killed because of this particular trope. So if we're going to continue to kind of, you know, glamorize and ingest the powers and, you know, the OT Genesis type rappers, then we have to understand that comes at a cost, right? I'm not saying that those songs and those shows aren't good, but that particular image is literally some people's only look into black culture. So if you're only looking to black culture is Power and The Shy and, you know, Snowfall, and then you listen to Lil Wayne or you listen to whoever, it's like, okay, well, that seems to be who black men are, right? This is who y'all are.
I mean, I went to school in graduate school with a guy from Korea, and he said that, you know, he came to America and there were 4 other black people in our out of 16 of us, there was 4 of us that were, you know, African American. And when he met us, he was just taken aback as far as like, oh, you guys know how to speak well, and you know, you guys are educated, you guys know how to read, and you guys know how to handle money. Because in Korea, all he was taught was the tip drill, you know, and you know, the girls with the big booties and the guys with the gold teeth and riding in, you know, Lamborghinis with 20s on them, you know, like he sort of fell into the psychological mind frame that black men were dangerous, you know, and that's why white women lock their door, clutch their purse, and you know, why we get followed around in the store, you know. So definitely these tropes go way beyond just what we see on television.
Exactly. I mean, I went to a POC, a predominantly black college in undergrad, and I think I mentioned this on one of the first shows. Literally had a class of just mixed race people,
Mm-hmm.
black professor, black male professor, and he was saying he got stopped in a very white town in California. And one of the students that was from that town raised his hand and said, "Well, you shouldn't have been there.
Mm.
Nobody like you lives there. You shouldn't have been there."
In
Tells
class,
our
for
professor
real?
that. Yes, the whole class erupted.
Oof.
He says anybody that looks like, that doesn't belong there, which would be black people, because we know black people come. And he's like, sorry guys, but black people do come with a lot of, stereotypes that a lot of them are true. I mean, erupted again, the class. And he's like, so I understand why you got pulled over. I mean, basically I was like, oh my God, but this is a mixed race guy too. He was white and Asian, but this is, if your
He's still white.
insular bubble, right, exactly. If your bubble is literally everybody that looks like you, and you finally go to college and meet 3 or 4 or 5 black people, just similar to the Korean man you're talking about, it's like mind blowing. I mean, he literally got a wake up call that day. I mean, I think we all ripped him to shreds for longer than the class time. We were in there still going, because this is, again, it's like if your like I said, your bubble in Manhattan Beach in California is a bubble. So if your bubble is all looks like you, and all you see is Dr. Dre, and this was obviously like 2000s, Dr. Dre, Snoop, whoever. I'm not saying it's right, but this is exactly why these images and these tropes can be harmful, because these people are taking this as gospel. And that is the propaganda that started with the birth of a nation. And it's perpetuating right now.
History continues going on. Now,
keeps on going.
It keeps on going. Now, we're starting to kind of, now that was like sort of the last one as far as like Bogle talks about it, and, some of the older ones. But, like when we were talking about this conversation, there's these newer tropes that we are starting to see. And one of them that you pointed out to me was the Jezebel. And also,
that's not new. That's not new.
To me, it's, well, I guess it's not new, but I mean, I guess in the context, well, I guess, yeah, because it was the harlot, right? I guess the more of the harlot, I guess that's what they call it. But yeah, go ahead and tell us about the Jezebel and the sapphire, because I know this video right now was showing Pam, and she's definitely a sapphire. So we're going to be kind of going between the sapphire and the angry black woman. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Jezebel character is a black woman, and sometimes it could be the tragic mulatto. It can kind of mix, but it's usually a black woman, and they use this character specifically, I'd say, like, definitely 1900s, early 1900s, to kind of justify why white men rape black women. It was a justification, because it's like, you're so loose, you've got your shoulders out, whatever was like, taboo during the time. It was all these kind of ideas that was used to molest us and rape us. And essentially it was like the Venus Hottentot character, which we'll probably go down, where just her natural African physique was, enough for her to be considered a Jezebel, enough for her to be, raped and paraded around Europe like she was a sideshow. So it's just essentially just by very nature of our existing and by our natural frames, we're considered loose. We're considered, overtly sexual. And so some of those characters, I think they really started to get highlighted more so in like Black exploitation films. I mean, there was some prior, obviously, but a lot of Black exploitation films had a lot of Jezebel characters and a little bit prior. And I would even say that Dorothy Dandridge would probably be considered, tragic mulatto / Jezebel, since what she did to Harry Belafonte's character would probably be more of a Jezebel move of kind of seducing him. It's usually somebody who's a seductress, who's like, trying to seduce a man who's a good moral character and standing, but she's not considered such. So that's the Jezebel.
And I think we still see, a lot of those, not only in the Black I mean, I don't know if we see as much of that in the sort of Black woman towards white man sort of thing, but we definitely see that in the Black films, though. In the Black films of this Black woman who's sexualized, almost like the Robin Givens, character, and your favorite, Boomerang. But then we see this in other films where you see this Black woman who's always trying to break apart, this Black family. Why Did I Get Married, which is the Tyler Perry joint. One of my favorite ones that he did. But remember, the guy was talking about the 80-20 thing, but he left his wife for the Jezebel and left Jill Scott and stuff, so, that's definitely been something of this sexualization of Black women. And of course, would you say that your Cardi B's, your Nicki Minaj's, and your Megan Thee Stallions are portraying the hip hop version of Jezebels?
And like we talked about the Coons and the Bucks in rap music, it's the same for women. The Jezebel character is, Little Kim, Foxy Brown. We can continue to go back in the hip hop crates. I mean, it's that whole sex sells things, right? But because that label is a Black female label, then it's going to be a trope. It's not going to, so, a lot of them, especially like, I know how much you love WAP. That's one of your favorite songs of 2020.
Oh, don't you put that out there, girl. You gotta put that out there.
One of your favorite jams of 2020.
Oh,
but
it was so bad on so many levels, but go ahead.
I know. So that whole idea of like Black women, kind of taking the power back and taking, it's almost like how Black men take nigga is like, I'm taking that word and I'm taking the power out of it. And it's going to be what I call my friends. And that's that. Black women was the same thing with the sexual thing. It's like the sexual thing, it's my body. I'll do what I want with it. And if I want to whop it up and drop it low, get a credit card, slide it down me, whatever. Like it definitely has been used as like an empowerment tool. But it's definitely still to this day, I think that Black women are seen more of, overly sexual in films. I mean, I know you mentioned it's not a whole lot of Black women with white men like on film, but of course, Halle Berry, right? Halle Berry won for Monsters Ball. She won. That's the first and last. She's the only Black actress to win Best Actress Academy Award.
Yeah, for the lead.
And it was for the lead, not a supporting, for the lead role.
For the lead, right.
For the lead in Monsters Ball. And that movie, what? She's tragic all over the place. She's struggling. She's got this Billy Bob Thornton character who's really just like a trailer park dude. And she's busting it wide open for him, essentially. And that's what she won the Academy Award for.
Because she went after Billy Bob Thornton, which was which was sort of disappointing.
And that's the Jezebel. She goes after. That's like the one thing. She goes after the man or whoever. And the girl, and she destroys him. And it usually has to be some sort of destruction. Right. The man has to either be destroyed by her or she gets killed because of her exploits, whatever. But there is definitely some tragedy usually involved with it.
And Layla Rashawn, right? She made a career off of playing the Sapphire. Layla Rashawn, she was in Sunshine and Harlem Nights.
Yeah.
She was in Waiting Exhale. She made a career basically playing that role, which I love her. I love her work, but I think she got pigeonholed and got character, like typecasted as that, and I don't know if she's ever been able to break out of that, which is something that Hollywood definitely would do to Black folks.
Right, exactly. And then just to go into the Sapphire, because you just brought up the Sapphire. So that character, that's your Pam's from Martin. So it's not overtly sexual, but she is loud. She is in your face. She will demean you. Usually, like the same as in Andy, that particular character is considered a Sapphire because she domineers over her husband. She wears the skirt and the pants, as they put it. So she's that Pam character, like never can shut up. And there's a lot of that too. Like I remember a lot of 90s movies had like that one woman, Black woman who just would not shut up and was, you just brought up what's her name? Even in Boomerang, she'd be over the fence. Hey, so she was definitely a Sapphire. Tisha Campbell, definitely a Sapphire character. I'm trying to think of any other modern ones.
See, really, anytime that there's a Black best friend, female, they are always Sapphire. They are always the ones who's telling it how it is, and that's really the character trait of the Sapphire is telling it how it is. I am not about to be sitting here acting no fool, while you be doing this, and just fearless, But the thing is, though, this sort of kind of segues into well, I guess it doesn't segue, but I guess Sapphire and angry Black women are pretty much the same thing. This angry Black woman trope that we see that once again we fall into it, but then also white people view Black women as angry because of this,
Right. Which follows us because, again, not just Black men get brutalized by the police. We get brutalized because we're angry, right? So we're a threat too. Obviously not to the extent, but because we all kind of get that label, it makes us threatening. It makes us, people don't have any sympathy towards us. If we tell anybody about, oh, this happened to me or that happened to me, it's, oh God, you're so angry. It's like, I can't even, Black women can't even express an emotion at work. Can't even express emotion, on television without being labeled angry. And everybody else is allowed to have like that range of emotions except for Black people, and specifically Black women. It's like, you have that range of emotions. Oh, you're angry. It's like, okay. So that character is, I think I see that more in real life, actually. It's like, especially if you're in social media. I mean, if you have any sort of like comment on somebody's page about something political, it's what's the dig? You're just an angry black woman. You're bitter.
Right.
You know, that's the dig still. So it's like that.
Yeah, definitely,
that
definitely the jaded black woman. Oh, the jaded black woman, boy, they are thick and true. You know, but like Taraji P. Henson, you know, she's somebody, you know, that definitely made a career. Like, even though we knew her from, you know, Baby Boy, which is what was my first introduction to her, and then she was in the one where Brad Pitt reverses age.
Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button, which she got nominated for an Academy for. You know, and she was in these other films. You know, she was even in a Tyler Perry film, I Could Do Bad All By Myself.
That's right.
Which fits right into the mold.
Yes, it does.
This is right into the mold. But then when she got on Power, like, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved Cookie Lyons.
You're talking about
Empire.
Yeah, Empire.
My bad.
Yeah.
Empire. Before the chat got on me for saying that. But on Empire, she played that sapphire, angry black woman. I mean,
yes, she did.
She was so good in it, and it, you know, it's one of those things like, I know what I'm watching, but I can't take my eyes away.
Exactly. Would you say that Gabrielle Union plays a lot of that kind of, I don't need a man? I am like, I just keep thinking about her show on BET, Being Mary Jane.
Being Mary Jane. Well, even the one she did with LL Cool J.
Oh God, I hated that. Deliver Us from Eva. I did not like that movie.
Yep. And even really, well, no, I guess she wasn't the Sapphire in Think Like a Man. I guess she wasn't.
No, she wasn't.
But she was complaining though. She was the one who was probably really the naggy one. You know,
so that's more Sapphire then. That's kind of Sapphire.
That's kind of Sapphire. I mean, I guess Wendy Williams would have been more of the, but she really wasn't in the movie. So, and then I think his mother, you know, when she played the Mammy, Jennifer Lewis, who played Terrence J's mother. You know, she kind of had it. But I would say that even though she wasn't like, I'm gonna tell it how it is kind of thing, but she kind of was, because she was always doing things to really poke at the guy.
And that's right. Right.
So I would say she definitely, but Being Mary Jane for sure. Being Mary Jane for sure. I would definitely agree.
Right.
Which, and of course, leads us into strong black women. Oh, the trope, strong, just take a beat and keep on ticking. You know,
keep on ticking.
Just
the emotional punching bag for America.
Yeah, and you know, and this is one of those things of like, you know, like it's evolved like on its own. You know what I'm saying? It was like something that it was almost like, you know, we knew black women were strong, you know, but then I guess we needed to show white people that black women are strong, you know, and that black women, and of course, you know, now a lot of these tropes, as we're talking about them, are interchangeable, and they can be blended in with other ones. And the strong black woman, I think, has been a trope that has definitely been added on to, like, the Mammy role. Has definitely been put into the Jezebel or the Sapphire role or something like that. I could definitely see that role. What do you think about the strong black woman character? You know, do you feel motivated?
So, well, here's the thing. So Melissa Harris Perry, she's a sociologist. She was on MSNBC for a while. She has a book, and she talked about this character being actually created. This trope was created by black women, according to her. Okay. So this was supposed to be kind of the equalizer for all the other negative ones. It was supposed to elevate black women to a more noble trope, I guess, a more noble standing in media. So essentially, like you said, we got the Whoopee Hole, you know, the Oprah character, just strong, you know, motivating to the women that are around her, even though she's gone through her own stuff, right? So this character, I think it was made, honestly, like, I understand why this was added into the lexicon of, like, you know, cinema, black cinema, but it's once again, it's not benign. The results are not benign. This is causing a ripple effect in our real lives. So since we're seen as strong, and then we can take it on, and people give that as a compliment. You're so strong. You're such a strong woman, such a strong black woman. It's a compliment to some people, but it's not a compliment when you're going through, you know, a life crisis, when you're going through something as everyday as childbirth, right? You're so strong. You can bear children and you can withstand so much pain, because black people are supposed to have, like, thick skin and withstand so much pain. So if people have this idea that they think is a positive idea about being strong, and then they kind of, like, forget that there's a human underneath that strength. There's somebody that is not strong all the time. There's somebody that needs somebody to take the lead sometimes too. You know, there's somebody, you know, we need emotional support. We need physical support, just like everybody else. But this character, in an attempt to be positive and show black women in a, you know, kind of more of a more round kind of point of view, it kind of is also hurtful at the same time. Sadly,
it is, and it's like, you know, this was created, you know, as you say, by black women to sort of be this equalizer, but then money talks, and if somebody sees that one thing works here, oh, then they're going to definitely put it in there. But then, you know, it goes bigger than it, because like Michelle Obama, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody would ever say that she's not a strong black woman, nor her mother. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But then that's inspiring. You know what I'm saying? But then where does it get to where then the strong black woman becomes a caricature?
That's
you
right.
know, and I guess, you know, once again, looking at all these tropes, these are just lines that we all have to sort of take a, you know, look at, you know, in ourselves. Now there is one more. Now we've gone through 8 thus far, you know, and we'll have the list at the end for you guys. But there's one that me and Amber were really kind of debating on, and so we had to put this as an asterisk, and that would be the white savior. You know, now the thing is with the white savior, because he is not played by a black character or a black actor, then we cannot necessarily put him in this. But I think the white savior does have to be within this conversation.
Absolutely, because within these black tropes, white people, again, have to usually center themselves, right? So the whole movie might be around a black family, but somewhere there's got to be some white woman or white man that helped that black family out some way, got them out of that dire circumstance, because they want to make sure that the white audience feels a sense of connectedness, like, oh, look, oh, okay, good, there's a white person that helped this people. They want this kind of shallow kind of reward, you know, at the end of these films that have to do with black stories. So just about every single trope that we went through, the Coon, the Uncle Tom, the Jezebel, the angry black woman, the Mammy, there's literally a white character somewhere assisting and moving the story along with their good deeds.
Yes. Yeah, and it's just like, you know, the Green Book. You know, this one right here, you know, now I forgot what the movie was. Somebody in the chat, I'm pretty sure, will remind me. But, you know, it's just these, like, we see these time and time again, like Denzel Washington and all the movies that he's in with Ethan Hawke, even though he's usually the older one. But typically, you know, sometimes, you know, he plays into that white savior role. Hidden Figures definitely was one.
Yep. I mean, they added that whole scene. I mean, yeah, like, you know, they added that hidden figure scene with Kevin Costner hitting the sign, the white only or whatever sign. It's like they added that specifically because the studio exec said white people need to feel like they weren't terrible in 1960 something. So can you add something to make them not seem as terrible? So that was not even, you know, part of the story. They just had to add it in for, you know, just to give a cookie to the white audience. Right,
and of course my joint right there was Glory. Love Glory, but then once again, Matthew, you know, Ferris Bueller's taking a regiment of black soldiers, you know, to war.
Gran Torino.
Gran Torino, right. So, you know, I mean, so like this is one that they definitely put in there, but like, as you were talking about, like this is Oscar just food, man. You know, they love it. They love, like, and the whole thing of like Green Book, you know, like, I didn't think Green Book was that great of a movie. I didn't think it deserved Best Picture. But because of the climate, and of course we'll get into the politics of the Oscars at another show. But, you know, that show wasn't that unique or an original. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I guess this, you know, this lower class white man with this upper class black man during the 60s was a sort of dynamic that they needed to explore. And so, yeah, definitely white savior has to be grouped into this trope. Maybe not as in the list, but definitely an asterisk.
I mean, anything Kevin Costner does,
Kevin Costner does.
Anything he does. I'm just trying to think of all the people that, I mean, even like Tom Hanks, like there's just so many of them, that always kind of do these films because like you said, it's always an Oscar nod. For some reason, these kind of buddy, black man, white man films, with the white man actually showing some humanity, Shawshank Redemption, whatever. It's like little darlings at the Oscars every time.
Always.
I mean, always.
And so this is the complete list right here. So, you know, right now we have is Uncle Tom,
exactly,
Coon, Tragic Mulatto, the Mammy role, the Buck Brute, Jezebel, the Sapphire Angry Black Woman, and then of course a Strong Black Woman. And of course, anybody in the chat, if there's anything that you know, y'all want to say that we maybe did not include in here, please let us know. But
Diamond's right. It's like I always have a hard time if I'm off the top thinking, is there any movie with no white savior that has a majority black cast or a mixed black cast? No, I can't think of any. There's always one woman or man that comes in. I mean, it's like Your Dangerous Minds. It's the movies that we probably watched at 14, 10, whatever,
Oh yeah.
and liked at the time, right? But then as you get older, you're like, Michelle Pfeiffer, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I mean, but they push that story where it just becomes so like, oh, good, there's a good hard white teacher. Oh, great, good, thank God, you know.
Right.
It's just unbelievable how we kind of ate that stuff up with not knowing, you know, not really like, you know, critically seeing how harmful and ridiculous it really is, especially when a lot of times those white actors would be taking like a Hispanic teacher's role, like in real life, it's probably like a Hispanic teacher or something, but they got to put a white actress in there, a white actor, just to, you know, appeal to that audience.
And really the big thing is that how the white character sort of learns. What does the white character learn from this black, you know? So I remember, you know, like Hardball. I don't know if you've ever seen that with Keanu Reeves.
I actually haven't.
Okay, yeah, that was like one of those movies of like Wildcats with Goldie Hawn back in the day, where she was a football coach for inner city. You know, like always the black person, the white person going into the inner city, being out of their element, and then they teach the students something, and the students teach them something. You know, that's
every time.
And
I always think about that. Remember the movie with Sandra Bullock and the football player?
Sandra Bullock. The other side. Oh, the Blind Side.
The Blind Side. I remember the football player. I think he was like a Baltimore Raven. I think he was a Baltimore Raven. And I remember him going, "This story is not it. This ain't it. Like, this is not anywhere how my life was at all." And they just made her seem so, oh, she's so tough, and oh, look at this white woman, she's just coming along and getting this, you know, these people together of her adopted black son, and it just was like, again, people were like, oh God, it's so great, you know. And I remember watching it going, no.
Yeah, no. You know, so you know, it is, yeah, and it's just a conversation that we're just gonna have to continue having, you know, right. and of course we're always gonna get more deeper and deeper on this. So, you know, once again, this is our list right here. But
and please like and subscribe, guys. I see some of you guys. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Now, and the thing is that, you know, and this is where great segue, because this is where it's the responsibility of now the black audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you guys as viewers, you know, you guys have way more power than like a filmmaker like myself or Amber has, because the thing is though, with these algorithms that they have out there, now that everything is streaming, before it was all about box office. It was like, you know, did you go see a movie? That's why Black Panther, once again, was a success, because black people went to go see it multiple times to actually show the worth of it. But then, you know, like if you say on one end that you want to see more positive black stories, but then you turn around and you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, and you watch Power, and once again, nothing's wrong with these shows. You know, I mean, everybody has their guilty pleasures. Everybody needs an escape. But then the thing is, though, you have to know how the algorithm works. So then, of course, you know, that's why we ask for likes, and that's why we ask for subscribes, because the algorithm, what it does is it helps us find the other people that are like-minded like you to get to them, you know. So it's not necessarily us trying to get our cred up, social media cred. It's really just to work with the algorithm out there. But what do you have to say about the black audience, the responsibility of the black audience, Amber?
So we've talked about this before, and this is our closing idea. This is why, you know, when I hear people say there's not enough variety of black films or black, you know, black TV shows, we don't have we don't have enough positive, we don't have enough varied stories. And then I asked people, did you watch Queen Sugar? Do you watch I May Destroy You? Did you watch these shows that were literally unique, storyline, haven't seen before, not a bunch of, you know, stereotypical tropes in them? No, I haven't seen those. Nothing's wrong with that, but we're not going to get more of what you're asking for if you're not watching those shows at all to begin with. So what you're going to keep getting is you're going to keep getting Power. This is why Power, well, I mean, I was so happy and relieved when Power, because I watched Power. I was so happy and relieved when Power was done. I was so sick of everybody. I didn't care who lived anymore. I was like, everybody can get it at this point. I'm just done with all of you.
Right.
And then when they came out with Power Book, I said, oh God. And then I saw Mary J. Blige in it. I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to give you. And Method Man with no beard, which is a travesty. And I just thought to myself, this is why we have to give, you know, the shows that might not be salacious, might be a little slower, might have a little bit of a subject matter that you're uncomfortable with, but we got to try these shows out, because we're going to keep getting P-Valley, and people like P-Valley. I've never seen P-Valley. I hear people talking about P-Valley all the time.
Never heard of
P-Valley is literally what's that movie Lisa Ray did in like 2000, the stripper movie?
Oh, yeah, Players Club.
It's like Players Club, a show basically.
Okay.
But that seems to be what we're attracted to. You know, we're attracted to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta and whatever subway, like subset of that. We're attracted to the Housewives. We're attracted to these kind of shows. And I watch the Housewives. I don't watch Love and Hip Hop, but I watch the Housewives. It's my guilty pleasure. But I also watch I May Destroy You. I also watch, you know, these The Outsider, these other shows that have black characters or a black, crew, because I want to make sure we get more. I want to make sure that like other filmmakers can, you know, black creators get the opportunity, and it's not just the same shoot 'em up drug dealer show.
Harlot. You know, and once again, that's why we went through these tropes, because we see these tropes all the time. So the thing is, though, if you're saying that you do not want to see any of these tropes, or you want to minimize these tropes, then you have to find the content that's out there. And yes, and that's just how it works. Is, you know, the more and more that you watch the stuff that's out there, the more and more that they're going to pump that stuff out there. So you know, it is our responsibility as the black audience to watch your guilty pleasures, but then also if there is a show that is maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone, but it has black people in it, then watch it. But of course, you know, we do have a conversation even about that too. Right. You know, but of course we don't have enough time to talk about that. But once again, still seek out other voices, other content of black people, and even minority stories. You know what I'm saying? That is just like you said. Like whenever you bring up Lovecraft Country was a supernatural, you know, magic show with black people in it. It was so different, you know. In order for us to get things that are like that, and even potentially better than that, because you know I'm not as big of a fan of that show as you are, but you know, then we have to still invest in that kind of things, you know, and then even write to these shows and tell them, you know, what we like, what we don't like, different things like that, you know. So the power of social media, we're definitely able to get a lot further on.
I agree. I agree, guys.
Okay, well, I think that's it. That's the only thing that we had for this show.
Yes.
I did forget to change the graphic. Sorry, for our next episode. But on our next episode, we'll be talking about systematic racism, I believe.
Oh, are we? Look,
I believe so. But we'll definitely send out the link to let y'all know, because we want to start getting into more topical shows like this. You know, and we appreciate all you guys,
yes, we do.
You know, staying with us for those first couple of dry runs when we were going over our reviews and different films. But we just wanted to give you guys a little bit about who we were, you know. But these is really like this research and, you know, talking about these topics is really what we want to go after.
That's right. That's right. Thank you all so much for joining. Like, again, click, you know, like, subscribe. We appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your day and coming to rap with us a little bit.
We do. And appreciate y'all. Peace and love.
Bye.